All right, so we'll continue here the next part, and to finish off this chapter, I just want to show you this diagram. So this diagram here is a diagram of the web itself. Okay, so that's the we talked about the internet and the web. So you see that the web really makes use of the internet to communicate from the client and the server. So in this diagram here, you can see that the client can be a notebook, PDA, a PC, or any operating system or any phone. Okay, that's the beauty of the web. And basically, it uses the internet to actually connect to a web server. So there will be some big machine on the internet to communicate with this. So that's the power of the web, that it is open and it can communicate. You can use any device to really communicate, and this web server will really uh, transmit back XML or HTML back to this device, and the device is supposed to display it. So that's just the way it works ever since the web was invented. So let's move on to the next topic here. Okay, so I already talked about markup languages, so I'm going to skip this slide here. So again, just to emphasize that markup languages are for formatting, okay? And these are like underline. You can see that the text underline paragraph means it will indent the thing, and then you have H1 meaning heading 1, right? So that it is much more for description of more of not description but formatting. Okay. Now I'm gonna skip through the now. Of course, another important thing which I think I failed to mention, that what distinguishes a hypertext markup language or HTML is that it has hyperlinks. That is the main innovation of the web. So the idea that there is a hyperlink, meaning you click on the link and it goes somewhere. That's what makes this document unique compared to others. Okay. I'm gonna skip through that. I think we all know what it is. I won't go through other things like CSS and all that stuff. These are other add-ons to the web to make it better. Have here is okay. Now XML I already talked about. This is again another illustration of XML. An important thing to remember. Again, you have the web server. It works just like in HTML, except that the content's a bit different. You have a web server, and then you have some device which will be accessing it. So that's the client once again. And again, I just want to mention that XML, the reason why it's used mostly on phones is that XML, since it describes data, you are not constrained by how the data will look like. So just by getting the data, it's really up to the device to display it in the way that it wants. So you can see the advantage of XML for certain devices. I mean, for smaller devices and devices which may change in screen size and things like that. HTML is built really for the desktop type screen, right? But for XML, if the phone is very small, right, like this small screen here, then HTML is not usually will not display properly. But XML, you have the option to sort of change it. Okay, that's the reason why it is there. Okay, or why it is useful. Okay. All right, so that is for markup languages. So again, I hope it's clear that markup languages are part of the web, and the web server responds with a markup language to the client. The client just displays the markup language, and that characterizes the web. Now let's move on to some other concepts here. There's another concept I'd like to talk about, and this is the concept of intranets and extranets. Now, these intranet and extranet, okay, are very fancy terms, but they are not really anything special if you know what it is. Okay, an intranet is simply the web or the internet, which is meant for access within a company. So what you're trying to do in an intranet and even an extranet is to prevent other people from accessing your data, but only you within that company will be able to share it. Okay. So how you might say, so what's the main difference between this and the internet? In the intranet, they include software or even hardware to block out external access. That's it, right? But the entire thing, the web server, the browser is all the same. It's just they put the software to block out. So if you remove that software to block out, it's exactly the same as in the web. It is really still the web, and you can access, everybody can access your data, you can access their data. But since we block it, that's what we do in the intranet, then it's safer, right? And it's meant to be used within an organization. So I think you see this all the time. I just want to show some examples so that it's clear what I'm referring to here. Okay, so let me just, okay, here's an example of an extranet. Again, this won't look anything different from what you already have seen. Okay, so this is just a page of an extranet. As you can see, the extranet in this case is supposed to allow, okay, you can see the word extranet here, very fancy term. It simply means that the data in this website is meant to be accessed by certain people only. In this case, it is maybe enterprise customers of Marriott supposed to access this and to view the data of Marriott. Okay. So how they do this, again, you can use software, hardware to make this happen. But basically, you're limiting access of your web server to certain people. That's an extranet. So this is external parties. It could be external or internal. Internet, I think, will be more familiar to you. This is an intranet. Normally, in any organization, there will be certain web servers which are meant for internal access only. So they build the network to block out external content or to be unaccessible, external content to be unaccessible. So this is an example of an intranet for a school, and I'm sure there in Tokyo, Choi University, you also have the same thing. Okay, so the administrator will set up the network to maybe not be even connected to the internet, or if it's connected, they will block it. They will put some sort of firewall or some software to block the data. Okay, so I hope that's clear what a extranet and an intranet is. One is to allow external access to your server only, and the other one is internal access only. Okay. All right. There's certain other things here which I won't go into. There are things like leased lines and things like that which are really not important. Now there is another thing which is quite used in business. Okay. Now the thing is, there's a certain software now which is called virtual private network. It's called VPN. Okay. So VPN is a type of network, a type of software which actually will allow you, let's say you're in the intranet, right? So you have let's say you have a firewall or this piece of software which is blocking access from the outside to get inside your web server. Okay, but let's say you are an employee of this company and you still want to get your information. Let's say you're outside on your home, you're working from home, and you still want, you're an employee, you still want to get the web into the web server's data, but it's blocked, right? Remember, it's blocked, it's intranet. So they developed this software, it's called VPN. VPN allows somebody from the outside who normally wouldn't have access, right, where it's blocked, to what you call tunnel in. So they use a special software which is, anyways, encryption, things like that, to allow certain types of connections or certain users who are outside to actually go inside the firewall and still get the data. Okay, and they have some special means to do that, like they encrypt the data to make sure that everything is safe and secure. Okay, so anyway, that is the whole point of a VPN software. It basically allows outsiders or employees of the company who might be working outside to tunnel in the firewall, to get inside the firewall and access your data, but only if they have this special software. Okay, so it gives a sort of exception that an intranet would normally not allow. Okay, so it's very useful in organizations. That's why it is very popular, because a lot of people work from home, so they can't always be inside the school. So I don't know if you have this in your school. I'm sure you do in Choi University. Okay, internet connection options. I just want to talk very quickly about it. Um, Now, the important thing to remember on the web is that the web does not really care what type of connection you have. You could have DSL, you have cable, you could have dial-up, you could have wireless. It'll all work the same. So I don't want to overly focus on this. Lately, the latest thing now is called fiber to the home, and I know in Tokyo you probably had it first in the world, right? So it is very, very common. It's very new here in Singapore, maybe a year old, but it's been around there a long time. So there's a lot of DSL, uh, ADSL. Now you would need to know this if you're going to set up a server in your company, and you have to pay for this service. So roughly, it depends on how much you're willing to pay. The faster it is, of course, the more expensive. Okay. Now, if you're a big company, then you would use something like a leased line. Okay, leased lines, uh, um, connections. Basically, these are the type of connection which are very expensive, meaning you have the whole line. And when you hear of these terms like T1, this basically this type of connections are used in companies or enterprises which need very fast connections. Um, they're of course much faster than what you would get at home. That's the important thing to remember. Okay, I won't go into this. It's not important. Of course, a important uh, concept here is wireless connections. So a lot of clients now connect through their Wi-Fi. I'm sure you do as well, and your mobile phone connection. Um, and since mobile phones are now becoming more and more part of the web, I mean, there's no choice. This wireless has to keep on improving. And I know in Tokyo, it'll be very good wireless networks there. I'm not gonna really dwell on wireless. The important thing to remember is you could connect your through the web using what you call Wi-Fi, right, which is a shorter range network, or your phone network, which is 3G. So all of this 3G, for example, would be more for um, wide area network access, and 802.11, this one here, would be more for wireless LAN type access. Anyway, the point is both of these can be used to access the web. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So what I'd like to summarize now is that the web is nothing really difficult. It's basically a client, a browser connecting to a server, okay? And then the client can actually connect through a mobile device or a desktop and access the same server data. The connection could be any sort of connection, wireless or wired. But the important thing to remember is the web. What distinguishes the web is they communicate via HTTP, and HTTP involves using a URL to access a resource, a web server, and then the web server returning XML or HTML content back. Okay, so that's the important thing. And then we talked a little bit about that the web can be in the form of open public web, meaning anybody can access, or it could be in a company, very secure, in an intranet, okay, or which allows internal people to access the internet, but they cannot access outside, and external people cannot access the resources inside, okay, or extranet, which selectively allows external parties to access certain data on your server. Okay, so if you're limiting your access, then you're really using intranet or extranet. Okay, and then you have what else did we talk about? We talked about connections as well. Um, it can be cheap or expensive, but the web will work the same way no matter what connection you have, right? And this will continue to improve. And of course, as your connection improves, so will be your experience of the web, right? But that's another thing.